there, thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with Keep Inking Up. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up! In San Antonio, Texas. And today's kind of a different video. What I wanted to talk about was why I make my own handmade cards. So first I want to back up a little bit and explain, why do I send cards at all? Why do I think it's important to send cards? Well, I like to send cards because it's a way of letting my friends and family know that I love them and I care about them, and I'm either celebrating their wonderful occasion with them, or I'm sorry for their loss, or whatever the reason. I'm thinking about them because I know they're going through a hard time or whatever. The point is, I want to send a card to let them know that I'm thinking about them for whatever occasion that it is. Now you can certainly send a text, and I do send text. The wonderful thing about text is that it is an instant message that gets to your friend or family member, and that's wonderful. But when you send a card, that is something that they can display in their home or their office, and they can look at it over and over again and be reminded that you are thinking of them. So sending a card is wonderful. You can certainly go to a store and purchase a card. And I don't discourage that at all. I think that's wonderful. If that's what you would like to do, I totally encourage you to go to a store and purchase a card to send someone to let them know you're thinking about them. One of the sentiments that I really like recently is from our Flowing Flowers stamp set, this one that says sending a card instead of a text. And again, I think that that's important because I just think that a card has a lot of impact when you send it to someone that you love. It's a more of an impact than a text. But again, texts are wonderful. I am not being negative on texts at all, but I'm just trying to focus on why do I send cards and why do I make them. So like I said, you can go ahead and go to a store and purchase a card and send it that way, and I have nothing against that whatsoever. I like to make my own cards for a number of reasons, and I wanted to share that with you. One of the things is for me, creating cards is just amazing therapy. You know, we are living through some difficult times these days, and stamping or any kind of crafting is a really good outlet to let you express your creativity easily, and it just makes you feel better. I know whenever I finish a card especially, I have a sense of accomplishment, and then when I send that card to someone and then they respond and tell me how much it meant to them when they received it, oh, that just makes me feel so good. And so I think that it is a really good therapy that's very important these days. I think it's wonderful to have a hobby of any kind, but card making affects others as well. So I really think it's a good therapy. The other reason that I like to make them is you can personalize your own cards. Yes, you can go to a store and purchase a card, but can you really get a card that is specific to the person that you're sending it to? Sometimes you might get lucky and find a card that just fits that person perfectly, but I find that that's very rare. When I make my own cards, I can maybe use a favorite color or a theme of image on there, or even put their name with letters or numbers or something that can personalize a date or a name or anything like that, so I can truly personalize my card when I send it to them. A lot of times I don't make cards that are personal for people because I don't know who they're going to be going to when I make them at that time, but then I'll be able to maybe adjust them later when I need to for a specific person. A lot of times I do take custom orders as well, and I will make them specifically for people. I don't happen to have any of those because I have already sent them out either to my personal family and friends or to people who have ordered cards from me. I do have a few cards here that I wanted to share with you. These are actually from a recent paper pumpkin. I just thought they were so cute, but they just have some fun images on them. So these are just some card examples that I wanted to share, and these would be great. These are more child-oriented, so they'd be great for like a 7 or 8 year old or something like that. So specific to, like this one, if you know somebody who happens to like monkeys, well then you'd send them the monkey card. You could send it something, some image that would mean something to that person. This is a really pretty card that's kind of have a Southwest looking feeling, so maybe it'd be somebody who lives in New Mexico or something like that. It's a really pretty card. This one's a purple card, so I know that purple's my favorite color, and so if I know a friend of mine that happens to like purple, I might send them this card to kind of really connect with them in that way. And this one is just another very colorful card that I enjoyed making. So those are just some card samples. I did want to notice or make note of something that you might not have noticed when you looked at these cards. They all have something in common. I, for whatever reason, and I'm not really sure, I tend to like to make top folding portrait style cards. And I think it's because I think that they're easier to display. You can put, like I said, you can a card rather than a text can be displayed in their home or office. And I think that this style card works really well. You might also notice that in a lot of these cards, I think all but one, yeah, looks like all but one, I used a thick basic white card base and then added full-size card fronts on them. So all of these are white card bases. And the reason I like doing that is that way on the inside I can have a full blank page to decorate or to write my message. So I think that that's a really good practical way of making cards. This one, like I said, does not have a white base, so what I had to do on the inside of this one is to add a white layer so that you can write a message on there. But that's really lovely as well. I decorated it and I think it looks wonderful, so you can certainly do that as well, but I tend to like doing the basic white card base with a full card front. So talking about that, I did want to share a tip on, let me back up again. You'll notice on several of these cards I have a lot of texture. I love adding embossing folders on these. So here's a splatter embossing folder. This is the time-worn text embossing folder. And this one has the stripes from the stripes and splatter embossing folder. I love adding texture with our embossing folders. One thing that the embossing folders do, which I wanted to show on here, when you use an embossing folder, it really breaks down the fibers of the paper in order to add that texture on there, which looks wonderful. I love the texture that embossing gives, but it really does weaken the paper. So you can see on here, hopefully you can see how different these card bases are. This one, the card front has really softened because it has been embossed, and it will still stand up, but it's not quite as sturdy as without the embossing. I'm not sure if that's coming across on video, but hopefully you can see how different that is. So what I like to do whenever I do an embossed card front, I prefer to, let me bring this in, I prefer to separate and do my card front that is an embossed piece and add that on top of, like I mentioned before, a thick basic white card base. Can't get my fingers to work today here. So here's a thick basic white card base, and I want to add this on the front of that, and that is what I do often, and you saw those examples that I shared. So I wanted to share a tip on how that I get these lined up perfectly. So there's two tips that I like to do. One is to use my Stamparatus. So I'm going to pull off my plate because I don't need that for this particular activity. And what I'm going to do is, this is my thick basic white card base, and I'm not sure why I do this, but I like to put the fold into the corner of my Stamparatus, and now I'm going to add some liquid glue around the perimeter of my card base, and a little bit in the middle as well. And now I'm going to take my card front that I have embossed. I need to decide which side I want to have up. Sometimes it's really hard to decide because they're both so fun. I think I'm going to put this one up. So now what I'm going to do is make sure that that card base is in the corner. Can you see that? I'll make sure I'm in the frame. Make sure that this card is in the corner of the Stamparatus, and then I can place this piece and shove it into the corner and make sure that it aligns. So now there it is, perfectly aligned onto my card base. So there's no white showing, there's no extra, there's no overhang. So it lines up perfectly. So the two tips on adhering an embossed piece to a card base is to use liquid glue, which means you could slide it in there just right. And then the other tip is to use the Stamparatus to have that corner to push against, so you make sure that you align it perfectly. Okay, so thank you again so much for joining me. I hope that you found this tip helpful. and that you understand now why I like to make my own cards and why I think it's good to send cards to people. So I hope that you are making cards and sending them to all your friends and family to let them know that you love them and to brighten their day. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.